Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my friends. I hope you are holding your positions and staying resilient. We live in a time where the cost of living rises while the value of loyalty drops, and today that reality has hit the very foundation of the North American continent. Have you ever felt that the systems you were taught to trust, the alliances that supposedly keep our borders safe and our economies stable, are actually much more fragile than they appear? We often worry about our own bank accounts, but today we need to look at the massive liquidity void opening up between two of the world's closest neighbors. This isn't just about a canceled contract. It's about a $19 billion hole in the heart of a system that is finally undeniably decaying. This is the visual that the Pentagon and the Canadian Parliament didn't want you to see this morning. It's the image of a $19 billion defense deal, years in the making, evaporating into thin air. For decades, the border between the US and Canada was the gold standard of geopolitical stability. But as of this morning, that stability has been replaced by a vacuum. Canada has officially signaled a retreat from US military technology, specifically the advanced jet programs, following a series of aggressive trade threats from the Trump administration. This is the moment the North American alliance system stopped being a partnership and started becoming a liability. We are witnessing the first major capital outflow of trust, and the financial implications for the average citizen are staggering. Before we dive into the systemic decay of this $19 billion void, I have a request. In an era of censorship and controlled narratives, independent financial and geopolitical analysis is our only defense. If you value this deep dive into the forces shaping our future, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share this video. Your engagement ensures that this information reaches those who need to prepare for the new global order. To understand why this $19 billion matters, we have to talk about systemic risk. In the world of high finance, a liquidity void occurs when a major player suddenly pulls out of a market, leaving no one to pick up the tab. Canada's decision to dump US jets isn't just a snub to Boeing or Lockheed Martin. It's a signal to the entire global market that the US security umbrella now comes with a price tag that America's oldest allies are no longer willing to pay. When Trump threatened tariffs and trade barriers, he expected submission. Instead, he triggered a geoeconomic pivot. Think about your own life. If you have a partner who constantly threatens to cut you off financially unless you obey every command, eventually you stop investing in that house. You start looking for a new place to live. That is exactly what Canada is doing on a sovereign scale. By walking away from this $19 billion commitment, they are creating a massive gap in the US defense industrial base. This is debt monetization in reverse. The money that was supposed to flow into American factories, supporting thousands of high-paying jobs and stabilizing the dollar's dominance in the defense sector, is simply gone. The void is real, and it's growing. The decay we are seeing is not just political. It's structural. The North American defense perimeter, governed by NORAD for over half a century, was built on the premise of shared costs and shared technology. When that technology becomes a tool for political leverage or trade war blackmail, the system loses its utility. The Canadian government isn't just saving $19 billion. They are diversifying their risk away from an unpredictable neighbor. This is the beginning of the end for the unified North American economic bloc as we knew it. We need to address the invisible constraint here. For 80 years, the US dollar has been the world's reserve currency, largely because it was backed by the most stable and advanced military-industrial complex on Earth. If you wanted the best jets, the best tanks, and the best security, you had to play by the dollar's rules. But what happens when the systemic decay hits the product itself? When a major ally like Canada decides that $19 billion of US hardware is a toxic asset because of the political baggage attached to it, the dollar's grip on the global order weakens. This is a classic case of asymmetric economic warfare. The US administration thought they could use the military contract as a leash. They didn't realize that in a globalized world, Canada has options. Whether they look toward European consortiums or develop their own domestic alternatives in the long term, the result is the same. A permanent capital outflow from the United States. For the American worker, this means the military-industrial engine that has fueled the economy since World War II is starting to stall. The Krugman perspective often talks about the benefits of trade, but even the most optimistic economists are now sounding the alarm. If you destroy the trust of your largest trading partner, you aren't putting America first. You are isolating America. The $19 billion void is just the tip of the iceberg. Behind it lies a massive credit risk for the US government. If allies stop buying our most expensive exports, how do we continue to fund our massive national debt? The system is cannibalizing itself to satisfy short-term political rhetoric. Let's be precise about the moment of decay. It happened when the rhetoric of America alone met the reality of global interdependence. The Trump administration's threats to penalize Canada for its trade surpluses were intended to be a masterclass in negotiation. Instead, they became a case study in structural failure by treating a military alliance like a protection racket. The U.S. forced Canada's hand. You cannot expect an ally to commit $19 billion to a 30-year jet program if they fear their economy will be decimated by tariffs next Tuesday. The friction here is palpable. Inside the halls of power in Ottawa, the sentiment has shifted from how do we work with Washington to how do we survive Washington. This shift is the self-destructive mechanism of the current U.S. foreign policy. It creates a new reality where the United States is viewed not as a leader, but as a volatile variable. This volatility is the enemy of investment. It's why the markets are reacting with such unease to this jet ban. Investors hate uncertainty more than they hate bad news. A $19 billion cancellation is bad news, but the uncertainty of who the U.S. will alienate next is catastrophic. We are looking at a systemic risk where the U.S. becomes the leper of the West. If Canada can walk away, the nation that shares the longest undefended border in the world, then who is truly safe? The North American alliance system was the bedrock of global stability. Today, that bedrock is turning into sand. As the U.S. retreats and its alliances decay, a new global order is rushing to fill the vacuum. This is the inevitable system decay we warned you about. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does geopolitics. When $19 billion of U.S. influence disappears from the Canadian defense budget, other players step in. We are seeing the rise of a more fragmented, multipolar world where regional powers cut their own deals to survive the chaos of the declining hegemon. This isn't just about jets. It's about the geoeconomic pivot. Canada is already looking at strengthening ties with the EU and exploring deeper trade routes that bypass the traditional U.S. bottlenecks. This is the new reality. The U.S. is losing its soft power at a rate that no amount of military spending can fix. When you lose your neighbor's trust, you've lost the neighborhood. The $19 billion liquidity void is the first clear evidence that the world is preparing for a post-American future. Think about the successor. Systems. While the U.S. focuses on internal political strife and trade wars, other blocs are standardizing their technology and their currencies. The invisible constraint on U.S. power used to be international law. Now it is simply the world's refusal to participate in our drama. The decay is quiet, it is professional, and it is happening in the accounting offices of our closest allies. The $19 billion has been reallocated. The void is permanent. Now let's bring this back to you. Why should you care about $19 billion in jets and Canadian politics? Because macro trends always become micro problems. When the U.S. loses a $19 billion contract, it's not just a number on a spreadsheet. It's the loss of tax revenue that funds your infrastructure. It's the loss of high-tech manufacturing jobs that keep your community thriving. It's the inflationary pressure that builds when the dollar loses its status as the safe haven for global defense spending. We are seeing a debt monetization crisis on the horizon. If the U.S. cannot sell its most valuable goods abroad, it has to print more money to cover its deficits at home. This leads to the inevitable system decay of your purchasing power. The liquidity void in the North American alliance is a direct precursor to a liquidity crisis in your own life. The decay of the system is the decay of your future security. The new reality is that we are no longer living in the era of American exceptionalism. We are living in the era of American vulnerability. When our allies begin to de-risk from us, they are telling us that they no longer believe in our long-term stability. This is a warning shot across the bow of every American household. Stay liquid, stay informed, and realize that the world you were born into is not the world you are living in today. Is there a way back? Can the North American alliance system be saved? The hidden breakdown suggests that we may have already passed the point of no return. Trust is the most expensive commodity in the world, and it is the only thing that cannot be fixed with an executive order. The $19 billion jet ban is a symptom of a terminal illness in the body politic of the United States. We have treated our friends like enemies for so long that they have finally started to believe us. The invisible army of global consumers and allied governments is moving against the current U.S. trajectory. It is the power of the purse, and as we see with Canada, the purse is closing. This is the Bud Light moment for U.S. foreign policy. Once the brand becomes toxic, the recovery takes decades, the Made in USA label in. The defense sector used to mean unmatched reliability. Now it means political liability. We are watching the fragmentation of U.S. influence. Just as states like California are opening their own diplomatic channels, our allies are cutting their own deals. They are protecting themselves from the fallout of a collapsing presidency and a decaying system. The $19 billion void is the silence where a partnership used to be. It is the sound of the end of an era. As we conclude this analysis of the $19 billion liquidity void, we must face the new global order with clear eyes. The decay of the North American alliance is not a fluke. It is the logical conclusion of a system that prioritized ego over stability. The moment of decay is here, and it is up to us to adapt. We cannot control the systemic risk created by leaders in Washington or Ottawa, but we can control how we respond to the new reality. Remember, knowledge is the only hedge against systemic decay. While the headlines focus on the drama of the Trump threat, we must focus on the structural failure underneath. The $19 billion is gone, and with it, a piece of the American dream of global leadership. But for those who are paying attention, this liquidity void is also a signal. It's a signal to diversify, to educate yourself, and to prepare for a world where the old alliances no longer provide the shade they once did. Before you go, I want to thank you for your time and your focus. This is a complex world, and your willingness to look beyond the surface is what will keep you ahead of the curve, if you haven't already. Please subscribe, like this video, and join our community of strategic thinkers. We will continue to monitor this liquidity void and the shifting sands of the North American alliance. Stay safe, stay liquid, and keep your eyes on the horizon. The system may be decaying, but your future is still yours to build. Until next time.